to do motor racing, you have to be, in a way, very special. There must be something missing somewhere.
Anything that doesn't hum, there's no fun in that. Either it works or it doesn't. There's truly an attempt to surpass normal physical limitations. There's something quite amazing about that. And the technology develops at an increasingly rapid pace. Even today's race car drivers are subject to extreme stresses. When my wife and I first met, she said to me, "But you only have to turn the steering wheel. Why is that so difficult?" But there are enormous G-forces. The seatbelt sits so tightly that I can't breathe correctly. I'm in there so compressed I can't even open my lungs. And it's also extremely hot. I also have my helmet on, so no fresh air comes in. The visor is down, there's only a small opening here underneath. It's always stifling hot inside. And the overalls and also the underwear, it's all soaking wet, nothing breathes. And that's what makes it so difficult. And of course also the tense body position that I have to keep inside the car. I stop breathing at every fast curve because I have to tense up so much in order to be able to drive the car at its limit. I have to dance with the car at its limit. And I can only do that if I maintain a strict position in the car. I can't just be relaxed about it. I have to really stay in position, and that makes everything very stressful. Argentina, 1955. The country has a star in its ranks, a man who will revolutionize the sport of auto racing. More than 100,000 spectators withstand the heat of almost 40 degrees Celsius to watch the race because of him.
When everybody asks me who was the best driver, I say Juan Manuel Fangio.
Fangio has already celebrated success in Europe. Now his being in his home country has become a national affair. Many drivers retire out of exhaustion. Not him. He's Argentinian. He is Fangio.
Fangio, above all, was a gentleman. Fangio was a humble man. He was a fantastic driver, and I can think of never, not once did I ever know him do something that wasn't correct. Now, many drivers I've driven against, I mean, Farina was pretty dirty, but I mean, there were quite a lot that would, they would go over the edge, and I mean, Jack Brabham, so not badly, but they would mess you up with dirt. Fangio never. Absolutely perfect.
The then 26-year-old Hans Hermann was a teammate of Fangio. He still admires him today.
Juan Manuel Fangio
was an incredibly decent person. He was a simple man, but he had an incredible charisma. I can remember one story in particular. In Buenos Aires, at the final practice session, he saw that my tires were worn down, and we only had 10 or 15 minutes of practice time left. He came over to me and told me out of sympathy that I could use his tires for my ride. That's how Fangio was, unbelievably helpful.
So war Fangio, unglaublich hilfsbereit.
Fangio is one of the first people to document the art of driving with a camera, a perfectionist.
I thought Juan Manuel Fangio was the greatest driver that's ever been, even to today. I think the manner in which he went about his life, the way he drove a car, the way he looked after his engineers, the way he chose only to drive the best team with the best engineers and mechanics.
British Grand Prix 1965. Fangio drives the legendary Silver Arrows of Mercedes. His third world championship is only a question of time. This time, everything is different. Fangio doesn't dominate as usual. His British teammate Sterling Moss is in the lead.
When I got round that last corner, I put my foot flat on the floor, I pulled over and I made way to him to go past. I thought, if you go past, then I know you've got more power, but he didn't.
It's the first Grand Prix victory for Moss on home terrain.
Whenever you can win a race and they play God Save the Queen, and in those days I was very patriotic and I had the Union Jack on the car, that was a very meaningful thing to me. Luckily you go around, you do an extra lap while you're cooling off and you can get the tears out of your eyes, you know. I mean, it's a very emotive time.
However, still today, Moss ponders one question.
I asked him, I said to Juan, did you let me win this race? He said, no, he said, it was your day, you were on form and so on, but he's the sort of man who wouldn't tell me anyway. And he's the man that would know that for Mercedes, this is the British Grand Prix, I'm a British driver, why doesn't he win? I've won the other ones, so it could be. I don't know. I really don't know. It doesn't bother me because he was that great a man.
Fangio is greatly respected outside of his team as well. The Argentine combines domination with modesty. Fangio knows auto racing is not a one-man sport. He always chooses the best mechanics who play an integral role in his success. And Mercedes has great ones. Races are often won in the pits.
You really need the best engineers and the best mechanics. The mechanics I had, I think they were better at what they did than I was at what I did.
A pit stop in the 1950s takes more than 1 minute. Only 2 mechanics are allowed to work on the car. The tires are replaced by hand with a hammer. Mechanics who are part of modern racing teams, such as Red Bull, are under enormous pressure. Their work must be completed within 3 seconds.
It simply is, the fastest stop is the one where you maybe gain 2 or 3 positions. So the pressure has been immense over winter to get equipment correct, get the right people in the right places. So we have been practicing this like a football player played. You know, they have practice every day. We've over winter been, 2 times half an hour in the factory every day, simply to practice pit stops. And it's a routine job. Absolutely, you get all your routines to get 22, 23 people to do everything right within 3 seconds. It's a huge task.
In slow motion, it's clear how harmoniously a team must work together in order to have the tires ready to be sent back out onto the track in less than 3 seconds.
Every detail of the car is important. Each has its own purpose.
There are 800 of us in the factory who work an incredible amount of hours on these 2 race cars. Then there are the people who come to work on the engine. They make up an additional few hundred. It's unbelievable, the whole organization that's behind it, and everyone has their part. Each is responsible for a part of the car, and everything must fit together perfectly. Only then can you win races, and every millimeter counts. If the spoiler was wrongly mounted by a millimeter, it would definitely drive slower. This being the case, it's truly the search for perfection. After 2 years, Mercedes pulls out of the Formula One. Fangio wins 8 of the 12 Grand Prix races during his time with the Stuttgart manufacturer. The Argentine continues on for 2 more years with Maserati and Ferrari. For each, he is crowned with an additional World Championship title. The champion then retires to his hometown. As the president of Mercedes Argentina, he represents his country in South America until his death in 1995. The admiration from his colleagues does not apply only to his professional career.
Fangio could always do what was necessary, and to me he was like a father, really.
To me, he was the driver, but also the human being. Fangio is regarded as a national hero.
I went to the funeral of Fangio. Now, Fangio hadn't driven a racing car since the 50s, and yet The respect that he had was just enormous.
Fangio remains unforgotten, an idol as driver and as human being. But there are others in the 1970s who seek much different challenges far from their hometown. That you have to be a bit crazy, that's helpful if you want to drive fast cars. But if you have to think, it won't work. If it doesn't happen intuitively, it won't work. And therefore I think for those who really have to learn it, they'll eventually hit their limit. Walter Röhrl, perhaps the best rally driver of all time. In 1974, he celebrates his first big success with Opel, the European Championships. His driving talent is paired with strict discipline and strong determination. Racing is a sport.
I
think I had the advantage that I already realized at that time that conditioning and an athletic lifestyle were needed in auto racing. It was a time when the Scandinavians were completely dominating the sport. And they definitely lived from their talent, since they had 6 months of snow or 6 months of gravel. But everything else in life they didn't take so seriously. They liked to drink. They liked to go out at night. And that was the key. I was incredibly in shape. You can't compare it with today's world. I sat for 40 hours at the steering wheel, and that's when you notice the importance of conditioning. In 1982, it comes down to the most spectacular duel in rallying history. Walter Röhrl against Michel Mouton. Man against woman. Her Audi race car with the new Quattro technology is superior to Röhrl's Opel. Röhrl's advantage? He's relaxed. I think the difference was I didn't want to win the world championship. I once said, being a one-time world champion is already too much. Things then began to blow up with Michel over the course of the year. In West Africa, it comes to a showdown on the Ivory Coast. I was more or less forced into it by Opel. It's all about the World Championship now, and you have to go. After going around in circles for weeks, we came to a compromise that I would not go to the practice, that my co-driver would go alone. I said I would fly in on the start day, and I would fly back out 2 hours after the finish. I didn't want to spend one unnecessary minute in the country, as I was afraid that I would get stung by something or would eat something bad, and therefore I went relaxed. I said, okay, I don't have to win. It's not so important to me. It's important to Opel, apparently, but not so much to me. And that simply makes it, like everything else in life, when you don't put pressure on yourself, it makes it all the much easier. The climatic conditions are an extreme stress to man and to material. The mud and the heat are a great discomfort to the driver and the cars. But Röhrl maintains his Bavarian composure. An hour after the start, my car broke down with rear-end damage. The journalists all came to me and were waiting for me to rage, but I said, eventually we'll continue on. There's 5,000 kilometers. It's a long way. It can still work out. And in that relaxed manner is how we dealt with the issue. Röhrl's decision is spot on. His Opel Ascona starts up once again, whereas the French driver Michel Mouton falls out. Her Audi could not withstand the extreme conditions. Röhrl becomes a two-time world champion in 1980, a triumph that makes him reflective, for he is a fair sportsman. When I look back on it today, I feel bad. It would have been much nicer if Michelle had won. It would have been a unique moment in history. For me, it was nothing. That's the unjust thing about it. She suffered, whereas becoming world champion again meant more or less nothing to me. For me, there was only one thing in life, Monte Carlo. Nothing else mattered. Rally racing during these times. Monster motors that demand everything from the driver, under the most extreme conditions in all areas of the world. Therefore, the co-driver is very important. He knows every inch of the track. Walter Röhrl manages to achieve something quite incredible. He wins the World Championship 4 times, each time with a different car. A daredevil with a lot of heart. Stirling Moss, another daredevil who never wins the World Championship, yet still becomes a legend. With one single victory. The Brit has his largest success in the 1950s with Mercedes. He's a teammate of Fangio, but always stands in the Argentine's shadow. However, Moss could do it all. To me, Stirling Moss was, during that time, the perfect race driver. He had the skills, whether it was an endurance race or a short race, or a formula, or motor racing or sports car racing. He was always excellent.
The one thing I had was I was versatile enough to be able to drive in different cars and so on. But the ultimate of driving, really, I think, is probably Formula One, if one's talking precision.
Moss was born in London in 1929 and discovered his passion for racing early on. He signs up for a private team, much to the dismay of his father, a dentist, who doesn't regard racing as a career. Moss feels comfortable behind every wheel and doesn't care how long the race is. He therefore takes part in the 24-hour race in Le Mans in 1952 and takes an early lead. A technical defect on his car forces him to retire, a fate that becomes a common theme in his career. But Moss has perseverance and ambition, and he loves danger.
There are 2 types of driver, the quick and the dead, and if you're not careful, do the same thing.
For him, it goes without saying to always drive at the limit during races, even though it can be life-threatening at times, even more so than today. Race cars at that time, rolling gas bombs.
Wir saßen in Rennboliden voll.
We sat in the race car, full of gas, no seatbelts on, like how I'm sitting here. Short-sleeve shirt, an odd cap as helmet. At the start line, the thoughts were often, and not just with me, who will it be today? That means, please, not me. Maybe the person in front of you, or beside you, or behind you. We raced from that perspective.
Gesichtspunkten sind wir Rennen gefahren.
Even more astonishing, the mindset of Moss. For him, the possibility of death is the draw of the sport.
The emasculation of our sport, the making of racing safer, I think really takes away a tremendous ingredient that to me was important. I didn't want to get hurt, but the knowledge that I could get hurt meant that the danger that I was combating was made to feel, it gave me a greater exhilaration.
What I can accept very well is the kind of risk that you're taking by yourself, going into a fast corner, and for example, the old Silverstone, where you had very, very fast corners at 250 kilometers, and you know that if you do a mistake by yourself, you have a big risk because you cannot escape. That's the kind of risk I'm ready to take because it's my control. And I can understand what Stirling Moss was saying about that.
I don't know anybody who was excited about the idea of doing the sport because it was dangerous. I think the basic idea is to be one of the best, if not the best. The basic idea is to have a large ego and to be the winner of a Grand Prix. The pleasure comes from the fact that you have been the best. But the fact that it's dangerous, definitely not.
In the mid-50s, motorsport experienced a sort of resurrection. The cars became more sophisticated and faster. Just the thing for Stirling Moss. He now drives Formula One for Maserati, with reasonable success. Again and again, he must park the car due to technical difficulties. However, a man who wants to put together the best team in the world has Moss in sight. His name, Alfred Neubauer, from Mercedes.
When Mercedes came back in '54, that is the team, because first of all they had Neubauer running it, who's a man what everybody knew about. They had a great car and Fangio. Those are the three things that were so important to me, because I have a passion for driving, and to drive with a team where they give you the car and the freedom to drive as hard as you can, to me was what I love, because I'm a racer, I'm not just a driver, and I love to race.
And sure enough, the Silver Arrows race everything into the ground. Though Moss also has the best team on his side, as well as the best driver.
With a Mercedes, if you didn't go off the road, you won, unless Fangio was there.
Together they established the era of the Silver Arrows, an era that remains unforgotten today. Without a doubt, I'm very proud to be a Silver Arrow driver, especially because of the history behind them. I mean, the Silver Arrows are legendary in the world of racing, and the other drivers who drove the cars before me. All the big names, Fangio, Stirling Moss, they're legends themselves, and that's truly special. The combination of perfect cars and team tactics on the one hand, and excellent drivers on the other, unbeatable.
Moss und ich, wir waren gleich.
Moss and I were alike. We were young, boisterous boys, and we were a really good team. We got along well, and that, thank God, is how Stirling Moss and I still are today.
Und das ist Gott sei Dank mit Stirling Moss, der ja auch noch da ist, bis heute so.
And then came the day of all days for Stirling Moss, May 1955, the Mille Miglia in Italy. A tough sports car race that demands all that Moss loves: endurance, exertion, and exceeding the limit.
There are things you don't get in Formula One that you do in sports cars. I mean, Fangio, I know, didn't like not seeing his wheels. It doesn't worry me one bit. I don't look at the wheels anyway. So it's horses for courses, and drivers are different. But at least I feel that I could go from one to another, and it didn't make too much difference.
His co-driver is Dennis Jenkinson. For the first time in history, he puts together a road book. He knows the track inside and out. Sterling Moss starts at 7:22 in exactly the manner the Mercedes team had expected.
Wir wussten, dass Moss ziemlich scharf gleich losgeht.
We knew that Moss would come out of the gate strong. We calculated that when we came to the stretch to Bologna, where there's only a straightaway and emergency braking, that we would then get past Moss.
Vorbeigekommen wären.
But things turn out differently. While Moss leads the field at a murderous pace, the race comes to an end for his colleague Hans Hermann due to technical damage.
Da hat's diesen rausgerissen und
The fuel cap ripped open and gas poured over us. At first it was pleasant, it was cool. Thank God something was cooling us off. But my co-driver was thinking way ahead. He was already standing on the seat and no longer sat, as it would have only taken a spark, and we would have been a burning torch. I looked at the back quickly to see if it was already burning, and I got a gush of gasoline in my eyes. I couldn't see anything, remained clinging to a rock. Thank God there were no jumping sparks. And by the time the car came to a complete stop, my co-driver was no longer in it. He jumped out right away. Unfortunately, that was the end of the race for us.
Das Rennen war für uns dann leider dazu Ende.
The split times of Moss and Jenkinson already surmise that this will be a victory for the ages. From a true team.
I completely relied on him. He was so good that I knew my life was in his hands and vice versa. That when he said flat out, I was flat out, and that was it.
When Moss is the first to cross the finish line, the audience can hardly believe what they're seeing. For the 1,000 miles, he needed only 10 hours and clocked an average speed of 157 kilometers per hour. Never again will someone drive the track as fast as Moss. Joy and disappointment lie close together. It's actually the one race, and I've been to a lot of races, where I'm still sad today that it didn't work out.
It was probably, I suppose, one of my best races, yes.
After flying high in Italy, Le Mans is up next. Moss is to drive together with Fangio. Hans Hermann has recently had an accident during training and is out. As a result, Mercedes engages Frenchman Pierre Levesque as substitute, a man of the old school. Le Mans is extreme. The spectators, roughly 100,000, stand close to the track. Safety margins? None. Moss and Fangio are quick to take the lead. It could be their race. The main competitor is Jaguar. The British team want to prevent a German victory at all cost, being only 10 years since World War II. The team from the island admits this later on. It comes down to a duel between the two racing teams. It's 6:26 p.m. on July 11, 1955. Levesque races off into the crowd of spectators. The exact cause of the accident is never fully clarified. Whether a Jaguar driver is at fault, speculation remains. 84 people died, among them Pierre Levesque. Whether Levesque could have prevented the accident, Sterling Moss weighs in.
I think it's one of those things that one can't say because it depends on the driver. I remember seeing Fangio at Monaco when there was a big accident. He gets through it, and he's done that many times. And I think if it had been Fangio back there, probably there wouldn't have been the accident.
Mercedes pulls their team out. The race goes on. Moss loses his only chance to win Le Mans.
I think it was a bad decision. I think it was the wrong decision because it didn't do any good. And it made some people think, well, maybe they have a conscience, a guilty conscience, it was their mistake, it was something to do with our cars, which was nothing to do with them.
During the night, it quickly becomes clear the British will wrap up the race.
Jaguar went on and won the race, which really was our race, but that's motor racing.
Moss finishes out the season, and in 1955, the era of the Silver Arrows comes to an end. Mercedes pulls out of motorsport completely. Moss remains as brand ambassador to the Stuttgart firm. Although Moss never became a world champion, he's more popular in England than his compatriot Mike Hawthorne, who did in fact win the title. Due to his crazy driving practices, Moss gave away many victories. Sometimes he didn't plan out the race well. He was too wild. Still in the last lap, he wanted to drive the fastest lap and then would fall out. That means he would have actually won multiple world championships.
The most important race I ever did in my life was the one today. Because today I can be killed, today I can win. Last week's gone, next week hasn't arrived. So today's what matters. And the of course I'd like to be world champion. I must admit, when I lost the world championship, the first time I was very, very disappointed because I felt I was better than the guy who won it. And the second time I was disappointed, and probably the third. But when I look back, I don't mind. To me, and I console myself with the fact there's an exclusivity for being somebody who never did win it, but some people think I should have done. That's wonderful. I'm not a year. You can't sort of say, well, was it 59 or 57 or 50 or 60? I'm not a year. So that's my philosophical way, or my easygoing way of getting over it.
In 1962, Moss has to end his career. He severely injures himself in an accident. Racing is no longer an option. He lies in a coma for a month. In 2000, he's exalted to peerage by Prince Charles. He is now Sir Stirling Moss.
I now often think back to when my father was saying, look, you can't make money at motor racing, and I often like to think back, well, you know, Dad, he'd be quite proud, I think, because now I managed to sell my time. I make my business by selling my time, and I'm not even driving, really. I race when I can, but it's been a wonderful life. I can think of no other life that I, as a person, could have gone into that would have given me the exhilaration and the love and the passion of what I was doing. There were heartbreaks, yes, sure, of course there are. I mean, a lot of my friends unfortunately died. There were times when I got hurt, but overall, my thought and my feeling of it is one of I can't think of a better life.
Hans Hermann continues racing. Commissioned by various manufacturers, he wants to achieve another great victory. Absolutely nothing should stand in his way. He survives this accident on the Avus virtually unharmed. Change of scene. Until 1986, the so-called Group B is the elite class of rally sport. The cars have enormous horsepower, and most have all-wheel drive. And again, accidents with tragic consequences occur. Spectators are killed. In international rallying, it's not just about car driving. It's a marketing campaign on almost every continent. The race cars are deliberately exposed to the greatest of difficulties. No extreme is too big in order to prove that you build the best cars. For the drivers, this means always be on the limit in the battle for seconds, and in most cases, a lack of safety precautions.
But it's a great adventure that lasts almost an entire year. Between gravel, mud, and snow, they experience the most beautiful places on our planet. Meanwhile, the cars have become so strong and fast that steering and braking alone is not enough. Walter Röhrl has a much greater knowledge. He has a photographic memory. If you want to drive with 535 horsepower and your co-driver doesn't know exactly what's ahead, forget it. And that was a great advantage. That with me, the film played out, and it was all a confirmation of what my co-driver had read to me. The project Group B ends in 1986. It's too dangerous, too extreme, essentially irresponsible. Group A is introduced. The engines throttled, the craziness kept to a minimum. Pikes Peak in Colorado, 1987. An extreme mountain race. Just the right thing for Walter Röhrl. When I got there for the first time, I started up slowly. My wife was stupidly still around at the time and was always telling me how dangerous it was, and at some point I believed her. I thought, you better know what you're doing, because if you drive just a little into the ditch, you're 500 meters deeper. That doesn't need to happen. But on the day of the competition at the starting line, all of that is forgotten. I was certain that I wouldn't make any mistakes, and I didn't think about it at all while. Röhrl has demonstrated all again in 10 minutes, 47 seconds. A new record. In 1988, the Audi team returns to the USA. After his rally time, Walter is to present Audi to the Americans, together with his colleague Hans-Joachim Stuck. The goal was to make the brand Audi known in the USA, above all to show that with a 5-cylinder engine you can also beat the large V8 and V10 race cars. And to be able to do that in conjunction with a 4-wheel drive system in a relatively low displacement engine, that was our job, to show people what the Audi Quattro was all about. Believe me, after 2 years, they learned. The Audi team takes 8 victories in their first season. Commandingly, the Bavarian car maker wins the Manufacturers' Championship. And an American driver wins the driver's title for the Germans. Walter Röhrl's work, however, goes above and beyond. Walter was, of course, very, very important to Audi as he helped develop the entire Quattro technology. And finally, it made no difference if we were driving on gravel or asphalt. Walter also helped develop the Trans Am with the ISMA 90, for which he did most of the work, since he was unbelievably knowledgeable with all the transmission ratios. What percentage in front, how much in back, which damper, which springs, and I also learned a lot from Walter. That was already the time, thank God, when there were so-called telemetry recordings from which I could see how he braked. He braked from the left to maintain the car's balance. From that, I learned so much from Walter, and that's how I was able to adapt the car so quickly. He was of huge importance to our team. Circuit racing means hard fights and reckless driving. characteristics that Walter Röhrl does not like to use in order to win. I also don't like to go first. When two people want to go through a door, I let the other person pass. In racing, this is of course the wrong way. So I also did the exact opposite when I had to, as I was under pressure from the company. And I said, well, I trained in America often, and it was made clear that you have to be third or we won't be the champions. That's the way it was, that you would be third, and you drove the race that way. You kept going and became third. You did your job well. But you still expected someone to punch you when you got out of the car. But in America, it's different. They say, wow, very good job, fantastic. But I hate that. For me, it's rally driving, clean, alone, against the clock. The best man wins, not the one who's most brutal. What Walter doesn't love is the specialty of his colleague Hans-Joachim Stuck. He prefers the hard driving style and also has success with it in the Formula One. Other drivers, like the Belgian Jackie X, are more contemplative due to the dangers.
Not everything is shining. You have good moments and dreadful moments. Yes, we are sitting today together, we speak about an era, everything was wonderful. No, it was wonderful certain days, dramatical other days. What makes you grow, it's also, and probably more, the bad experiences than the good ones. That change your style, that change your motivation, that change your way of seeing things.
Jackie's a wonderful person, really. We were both at Porsche for 11 years, and I really respected him, really liked him. I see him as a great friend, and he also has a great friend in me. I just like him. Jackie X, one of the best all-round drivers of all time. He was born in Brussels in 1945 and competed in motorsport for an unbelievable 30 years in almost all classes. 6 times he won the 24-hour Le Mans race, and therefore became known as Monsieur Le Mans. His driving style adapts to the task at hand. He's a natural. And Jackie X is a winning driver, by no means to be taken for granted. He's averse to rankings. He remains a loner with his Belgian bullheadedness. Stages of his career: Tyrrell, Ferrari, Branham, Ferrari again, McLaren, Lotus, Williams, Porsche. He doesn't collect revenue and has a very interesting way of seeing things. He always maintains a certain distance from the racing scene.
There were a lot of freedom and a lot of, in a way, amateur style. The name professional was not the name adapted to us in those days. Why? Because the basic idea was just to drive. The money was not important, and there were no money. The basic idea was to win races.
And Le Mans is his race. His partner, Jochen Maas, stays on the outside. He doesn't want to take part in the classic. He would rather film it. The risks are too great. I always told Porsche I would like, of course, to drive all races with Jackie. Just not Le Mans. I didn't want to drive in Le Mans. I could have won the entire race with Jackie, but I did it out of principle and out of safety concerns.
He missed the possibilities of a number of wins at Le Mans because he felt uncomfortable, and you have to respect that.
Ickx, on the other hand, is in his element, the victory firmly in sight. But a malfunction during the beginning of the race looks to already be the end.
I was out of the race due to a broken engine after 3 hours.
But Ickx doesn't want to simply give up the race. He steps into the second car, more or less not standing a chance.
Even if it looks a total disaster, you may win.
The Belgian laid it all on the line and chose a brutal tactic.
We had the incredible chance to be able to race Le Mans for the first time as a Grand Prix. That means flat out. The remaining car was 41st, I would say, by memory.
To race at full throttle on such a track, an immense risk.
We had nothing to lose. Nobody had anything to lose.
The decision came overnight.
And in the morning, suddenly, you are alone in front.
And then the unthinkable happened.
We had to overdrive ourselves.
Jackie Ickx wins Le Mans.
Personally, I think I drove one of my best races in long distance.
Jochen Mass stands by his doubts, once again to take the risk, the incalculable.
You just had to be lucky, that's all.
And many didn't have that luck. Jochen Mass was among those who weren't willing to put too much on the line, and for good reason. And it happened at every race. At every race, a driver was killed. I looked around on Friday at the briefing and I thought, who is it this time? Hopefully not me. His career is almost at an end. And then there is the other side to racing that Mass and his friends love so much. To be the center of attention, to be idolized, to give all that up. They're racers out of passion in the big, beautiful world of motorsport.
You are what you are, is because you are surrounded by those incredible people who are passionate by motor racing. They have the right expertise, but you never see them. The drivers are underneath the headlights. They get all the glory, but you can't get the glory without these hundreds and hundreds of people who are working on a project.
The project is not yet over for Mass and Ickx. The German continues to drive the big important races for Porsche until the end of the 80s. They also take part in Paris-Dakar, where Mass survives a severe accident and asks himself, is it all worth it? But it was a very thin band that allowed me to survive that time. And I thought to myself, someone is trying to tell you something. Now pay some attention and quit this thing. Mass enters the sports car class for Mercedes. In 1989, the time has come. He drives Le Mans. And he wins the race that he had always shied away from. At the older racing age of 42. This has special significance for him. My father died when he was 42, and strangely I thought about that with 42, I had finally won the race that I had tried so many times to win. It was great. The African sun. That did it for Jackie Ickx. During the rally Paris-Dakar, the continent begins to fascinate him. All victories seem to be forgotten. A new perspective on life is opened after 30 years of race car driving.
I had a very good guardian angel. And at the end of my career, that guardian angel was very exhausted. He said, "No, it's enough, because I give my best. Now you have to give me some rest." And that's it. That was the end of it.
Jackie Ickx regularly visits African countries. He loves the people and the nature. He's found himself balance in the life of a racer.
The first 20 years, your view on the world roughly limited to motor racing. It's narrow. The third part of my life is the discovery of the African continent.
The hustle, speed, and glamour is in the past. What matters now? To get away.
For me, it's well behind me. It's another Jackie Ickx. When you reach the age of 70, you start to see the checkered flag. So you know that you have to enjoy every day of your life and take the best part of it.
Jackie Ickx is completely finished with the sport of racing. In fact, he doesn't even want to talk about it anymore, much in contrast to his fans, who will forever regard him as the legend of speed.